Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today we're really going beyond just like recognizing what's in a picture or a video.
Right, yeah.
We're diving into something a lot more specific. We're talking about instance level understanding. And,
Oh, yeah.
I was really fascinated by the research that you sent over on this new method, INSTIT.
Yeah.
It really seems like it could change the game, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. I mean, this
Yeah.
is really getting into AI understanding, not just, what's in a picture, but, who is doing what and how those things are changing over time.
Yeah, like it's not just there's a cat in a car.
Right.
It's more like the cat, which belongs to person number 3,
Right.
chasing this red laser pointer.
Exactly. Exactly.
That level of understanding, that specific understanding, just seems like such a huge hurdle. I mean, why has it been so hard for AI to get this right until now?
Well, I think current AI models are good at identifying objects,
Yeah.
but they often miss the specific relationships between them.
Oh.
They get sort of the gist, like you're saying, but not those fine-grained details.
Okay.
And actually, the research that you shared has this great example. It talked about an AI model shown 2 frames of a video. And in these 2 frames, a woman's shirt changes color. But the model totally misses that detail.
Yeah.
It instead fixates on the fact that the woman is walking in a slightly different direction.
So it's like the AI is paying attention to the wrong things.
Totally. It's missing the forest for the trees,
Yeah.
And this really highlights the limitations of current approaches, especially when you think about the real world and how we want to use AI.
Especially in those mission critical situations.
Exactly. And this is really where INST comes in.
Okay.
Instance instruction tuning.
Mm-hmm.
This new approach is specifically designed to try to address those limitations head on.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. INSTIT, Instance Instruction Tuning.
Right.
From what I was reading, it uses something called set of marks visual prompts.
Yes.
So is that right?
You got it. It's a pretty clever method. What they do is they use these visual markers, almost like little sticky notes
Ooh.
with numbers on them,
Okay.
and they use those to point out each important instance in an image or a video.
Gotcha.
So instead of just taking in the whole scene all at once, the AI is being guided to specific points of interest with these markers.
Okay, so it's like giving the AI a guided tour of the image,
Exactly.
highlighting what's important.
Yeah. Look here. Look here.
So how do they make sure that the AI not only understands what each thing is, but what it's actually doing?
That's where GPT-4 comes in.
Uh-huh.
They've used GPT-4 to create super detailed annotations for each of those instances. So think about it. Captions that describe each marked instance, explanations of the overall image, and even descriptions of what's changing between frames in a video. It gives the AI this really rich set of information to learn from.
So basically, it's like they're giving the AI, the Spark Notes or Cliff Notes
exactly.
to the scene.
Yeah, a cheat sheet.
A cheat sheet, right.
Yeah.
Highlighting the actions, the relationships between everything. But then how do we actually know? Like, how do we test that the AI is really understanding this?
Well, they created something called INSTIT bench, which is like a benchmark designed to evaluate how well AI models can understand those instances.
So this is kind of like an exam for AI.
Exactly, it's a test to see how well they've learned.
That's so cool. I mean, what would be an example of a question on this exam?
Okay, so imagine our party scenario again.
Great.
We have all the people, the snacks, the activities. A question on the INSTIT bench might be something like, what is person number 3 doing at timestamp 5?
Gotcha.
So this forces the AI to first correctly identify who person number 3 is.
Right.
And then to understand what they're doing at that specific moment in time.
Yeah, like they really have to understand the scene, every little part of it.
It's a high bar.
Yeah.
You really got to get it to pass.
Okay, so we have these sticky notes that are highlighting the instances.
Right.
We have these GPT-4 generated, I guess, cheat sheets.
The cheat sheets, yeah.
That are providing all the context.
Yep.
We have the Adjust-IT bench that's acting as this exam.
Right.
What else is in this toolkit?
Well, you need something to train these AI models on.
Right.
You need a good data set, and that's where the INSTIT data set comes in.
Okay.
It's a huge collection of images and videos, all annotated with those super detailed descriptions we were talking about from GPT-4.
Wow. So this data set must be really diverse if it's going to be effective for training these AIs.
Oh, absolutely. They pulled from all sorts of sources like BRUST, UVO, U2 VIS. They even used object tracking data sets. So it's not just like your typical stock photos or videos. It's meant to reflect a real variety of scenarios.
So, I mean, this sounds incredibly impressive, but does it actually work? Like, does training an AI with an NSTDT truly make it better at understanding all of these instances?
That is the million-dollar question, right,
Yeah.
Peter? And that's what we're going to dive into in part 2 of our deep dive.
Same way.
We'll explore some of the results of testing out NSTIT and see if it really lives up to the hype.
Awesome. Well, everybody stick with us. We will be right back to talk about that. All right, so we're back. And before the break, we were talking about all the pieces of NSTIT, the sticky notes, the cheat sheet, the exam, that giant data set they use for training. But the big question is, does it actually work?
Right. That's what we really want to know. And the research seems to show that it really does. They tested NST with this AI model called 11 Next.
Okay.
And the results were actually really promising.
So what kind of improvements did they see? Like, how much better did it get?
Well, for one thing, using NSTI really boosted LFN's performance on NST Bench, like on that exam we were talking about.
Right.
But I think the really interesting thing is that the improvements were most noticeable when it came to understanding changes over time in videos. Remember that example we talked about with the woman whose shirt changed color?
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that ENSTIT really helped the AI model pick up on.
So it's not just about understanding like a still image, it's like grasping the dynamics, how things are changing within the scene.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like the flow of events, how things are evolving.
Man, that seems incredibly valuable when you think about real-world applications.
Oh, totally. I mean, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities. Think about something like surveillance systems. Right now, they're pretty good at detecting motion or recognizing faces, but they often miss those subtle details, the actions, the little things that could be really important.
Like a traditional surveillance system might tell you that someone's in a restricted area.
Right.
But with ENSTIT, it might be able to understand, person number 1 left package number 2 by door number 3 before leaving the area.
Exactly. That level of detail, the specific actions, the relationships between things, that's what could really make a difference. And NSTIT is giving AI systems, the ability to finally understand that.
Yeah. I mean, this could be huge for something like sports analysis. Imagine AI systems that can track individual players, understand their movements, and really give us granular insights into their performance.
Oh, I know. It could completely change the way we understand how athletes train and perform. Coaches could use that data to identify strengths and weaknesses, maybe even predict potential injuries just based on how a player is moving.
Wow.
Right.
I mean, the possibilities are really pretty amazing. I mean, what about beyond security in sports? What other kinds of applications could benefit from this?
Well, one area that I find really interesting is personalized education. Imagine an AI tutor that can look at a student's work, not just grade it right or wrong, but really pinpoint exactly where they're struggling based on their specific actions, the kinds of mistakes they're making.
So it could make learning so much more targeted and effective. Like instead of just saying, oh, you got this question wrong, it could understand why they got it wrong and give them feedback specifically for that.
Exactly. Yeah, and it could do this for every student individually, creating this like really customized learning experience. That's the power of understanding things at the instance level. Let's just go beyond these broad generalizations and really focus in on the unique details of each situation.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like the potential applications are almost endless, but I'm curious, was it just using a bigger AI model that led to these improvements, or did NSTIT itself play a specific role?
That's a great question. Actually, the researchers found that just, simply making the AI model bigger, like going from a 7B model to a 72B model, that didn't really solve the problem of understanding at that instance level. It really took the combination of the NSTIT data set and that specific way of training for them to see a real difference.
So it's not just about brute force throwing more computing power at the problem.
Right.
It's really about feeding the AI the right kind of data and training it in the right way.
Exactly.
And NSTIT seems to be a real breakthrough in that sense.
I think so, yeah. It's definitely really promising. But, I do think it's important to remember that this is still early days. There are definitely still challenges and areas where things could be improved.
Like what kinds of limitations did they run into?
Well, one thing they pointed out is that using GPT-4 to create those really detailed annotations, it's expensive and it takes a lot of resources.
Yeah.
GPT-4 is great, but it doesn't really scale that well to really massive data sets. So figuring out, more efficient ways to generate that kind of training data, that's going to be really important for making INST more practical, if we really want to use it in the real world.
It's an exciting first step, but we need to figure out how to make it work on a larger scale, make it more affordable if we're going to use it everywhere.
Exactly. But, the potential is huge. And I think as we gather more data and train these AI models with these new techniques, we're going to see even more incredible advancements in instance level understanding.
So it feels like we're at a turning point, like we're on the edge of a real shift in what AI can do. But I think before we get too carried away with all the amazing possibilities, we also need to step back and think about the bigger picture.
Right.
What are the potential implications of this technology? Both good and bad. Like, what does it really mean for society as a whole?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and that's something that I think we should definitely explore further. So why don't we take a pause here, and when we come back for the last part of our deep dive, we can really dig into those broader questions and think about the potential impact that this technology could have on all of us.
All right, so we are back and we're ready to wrap up this deep dive into instance level understanding. It's been quite a journey so far, wouldn't you say?
Oh, it has. I mean, we started with AI not even getting a simple color change, and now we're talking about, totally changing how we do things like, security and education.
Exactly. And that's exactly what I wanted to focus on in this last part. I mean, we've spent a lot of time on how INST works, but now I think it's time for the so what. Like, what does all this actually mean for us? How could this technology actually impact our lives down the road?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Like any powerful new technology, we got to think about the bigger picture, the good, and the maybe not so good.
So let's start with the good stuff. We've already talked about some exciting potential in education and sports. But where else could this level of AI understanding really make a difference?
Oh man, there are so many possibilities.
Ah.
Healthcare, for sure. Imagine AI that can analyze medical images, like way more deeply, not just spotting something weird, but understanding what it means in the context of, the whole patient.
Wow, yeah. Like earlier diagnoses, maybe catching things before they become a big problem, potentially even saving lives.
Exactly. And think about like totally personalized treatments tailored to each patient's, specific situation.
I mean, that's amazing to think about. This technology could really help us live longer, healthier lives. Are there any other areas where this granular understanding would be a game changer?
Tons. How about urban planning, like traffic management? AI could analyze those patterns, like at a crazy level of detail, figure out where the bottlenecks are, and optimize the flow in like real time.
It could make our cities so much more efficient, less traffic jams, maybe even safer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, those are just a couple of examples. The possibilities are like, I mean, they're pretty much endless as this technology keeps developing.
Yeah, no, it's truly remarkable to see how far AI has come and where it's headed. But I think, as excited as we are about the possibilities, it's also important to be realistic. There could be downsides too, right?
Oh, absolutely. With any powerful tool, there's always the risk that it could be misused or that, we might see some unintended consequences down the line. So it's really important that we're having these conversations now, trying to anticipate potential issues and figure out like safeguards before these systems are everywhere.
That makes a lot of sense. So what are some of the things that worry you?
Well, privacy is a big one. As AI gets better at understanding what we do, our individual actions, our behaviors, we really need to make sure all that data is handled responsibly, ethically.
Right. So it's this balancing act. Like we want to use this amazing technology, but we also need to protect people's rights and their freedom.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's essential. And it's not just privacy either, right? We need to think about bias too. AI systems, they can inherit biases from the data they learn from. So if that data is flawed, the AI can end up making unfair or discriminatory decisions.
Yeah, we can't just assume that AI is neutral just because it's a machine.
Right. We got to be really careful to make sure that these systems are fair and equitable.
It's a huge responsibility. But honestly, I think it's also an incredible opportunity. Like we have the chance to really shape how this technology develops and make sure it's used for good.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. It's up to all of us, researchers, developers, policymakers, even just regular folks, to make sure AI is working for humanity, not the other way around.
Well, on that note, as we wrap up this deep dive, I'd like to leave everyone with one final thought. We've, talked about the nuts and bolts of INST, explored the different ways it could be used, thought about the impact on society as a whole. But I think the most important question is, what role do we want to play in all of this?
Yeah, that's something to really think about. The future of AI is not set in stone. It's a path we're all walking together. And the decisions we make now, they're going to shape the world of tomorrow.
So true. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into instance level understanding and the incredible potential of NSTIT. We hope this sparked your curiosity, maybe even inspired you to keep learning more about this amazing field of AI.
And to think critically about its impact on our lives, both now and in the future. Until next time.